Okay, so here's the deal. When Twisted League came out, I played around with it. I thought the concept was really interesting, but I didn't stick with it much, mostly just because I was playing my actual account and I didn't really feel like competing in Twisted League. A lot of the skills had very limited ways to train, especially rune crafting in the Arceus library, but I did have fun with it. And then Trailblazer rolls around, and I got super into Trailblazer. I almost maxed my account. The only thing I had left was prayer, and that's just because I didn't have any real reliable way of training prayer, and push come to shove, I ran out of time. I did do a fair bit of PVM, but definitely not as much as I had liked. I had Mauritania, but I never did a Theatre of Blood. And then with Shattered Relics, I was super excited. I thought I was going to get just as into it as I did Trailblazer, but the relic system was super clunky. I know they updated it so you could have presets at some point, and I enjoyed watching other people play it, but by the time the presets came out, I'd kind of lost all interest. Trailblazer Reloaded, I am beyond excited for. This is probably the most excited I've ever been to play RuneScape. I've taken some time off work, I'm going to do a bunch of meal prep, I'm going to make sure I've got all my real life errands in order, so that I can just dedicate that first week to just really enjoying the game. I've definitely decided that I want to record a bit of progress, so this is kind of my pre-leagues video where I'm going to go over some of the plans, or some of the plans that I don't have, because there's just so much choice and we don't really know everything just yet. So that's what we're going to get into today. I'm going to go through some of the choices that I'm considering with, regards to combat style, regions, relics. It's all based on what we know. Obviously things might change, but I wanted to get an early start, and I wanted to get my kind of initial thoughts out at the moment, because I just have so many thoughts about going into Trailblazer Reloaded. It's going to be absolutely wild. Okay, so I guess we'll start with combat style, because that's kind of the smallest choice in terms of available options. I know I don't want to go range. Range looks like it's probably going to be the highest DPS possible, and that does seem exciting, especially with those Ruby Bolt specs. However, range has just never really been my favorite kind of combat. Last Trailblazer I went for melee, and I really enjoyed that. At one point I was so sure I was going to go melee again, but there have definitely been some developments that have made me reconsider, so it's really now a toss-up between melee and mage. And depending on which one of those I pick, that's going to massively affect my regions, as obviously all the gear is based in your region. You can't really go melee without taking Asgardia, because there's just so much good stuff in there for it. If I go melee, I'm pretty decided that I'm going to go for Kandaren, Desert, and Asgardia. You might be thinking, why not go for Mauritania for the scythe? And quite frankly, I just really don't feel like doing top. I think there's plenty in those three regions that can get you a reliable melee build, and I would be really excited to try something like Nex. Of course, something that's different in this league is that we now have the Inferno. I've never done the Inferno. You can see my cheese cape right here. If I did decide to go melee, then doing the Inferno is something I have to think really hard about, because while a lot of the relics are going to really benefit me regardless of what combat style I choose, I still think that melee Inferno is going to be the hardest without a doubt. And that's why I'm also really considering Mage. Mage gets a little bit more complicated because I really have no idea what regions I'd take. I think definitely Kandaren. Kandaren should really just be an auto unlock, I think. It's such a pivotal region to all of the combat styles, maybe range a little less, but there's so much content in it, and there's definitely best in slot items for all three styles there, so I don't see why Kandaren is an auto unlock, but whatever, we're going to unlock Kandaren. That'll be my first region, no doubt. And then if I'm going mage, I'm definitely taking the desert. The desert gives us Tumican Shadow. It gives me a chance to really get stuck in with TOA. I'm really excited to try out the desert, and as well, we'll have some of those Desert Treasure 2 bosses, depending on the third region we picked, but at the very least, the Leviathan. For the third region, I mean, this could go anywhere. I know I don't want Teruan because there's nothing there, but Fremennik sounds like a really good support region. It also gives us access to the Duke, which might be a bit slow of a boss to kill in Trailblazer, but it's going to be fast regardless. Fremennik gives us access to basically a maxed house in terms of a rejuvenation pool, the portal nexus, everything that I could need. Of course, another really good pick for a mage route would be Korend. Having access to Chambers of Xeric means that I'd be able to get the best in-slot mage gear in Ancestral, as well as Augury. There's a lot in Korend. It's a massive region, and I think as well, I am a skiller at heart, and I'm probably going to enjoy a lot of the skilling opportunities that Korend has. The only worry is that I don't know if I want to take two raid regions. I am mostly going to be going for points. That's kind of my thing, as I like to see how high up on the high scores for points I can get. And I just know that there's going to be loads of tasks for challenge mode, Chambers of Xeric, and high invocation TOA. However, Current is one I am seriously thinking about, and I guess it's really going to come down to what those tasks are when we finally get to see them. And finally for Mage, I might just also pick Asgarnia. Asgarnia is just a huge region, you get access to the Eternal Boots. It's not as great for Mage gear, however, there is so much there, so many different bosses, so like you got all of Guard Wars, so I think there's just so much there that I could do. Again, that's another one where I want to see the tasks, and I want to know how much content am I committing myself to by deciding that I want to do Asgarnia. And that's really going to be what informs my choice in combat style and regions. Okay, and I guess the last really big thing to discuss is the relics that we know are coming so far. I'll start by kind of going through the tier 1 relics because they're all released, and then we'll kind of go through them in the order that they came out in the teasers, which I've been keeping up with. So last Trailblazer, I took Endless Harvest. I feel like that was the best choice and there was no real competition. Production Prodigy was interesting, but it just wasn't as good as Endless Harvest. I remember just sitting and cooking Karam ones for like 6 hours at a time, going up to like 25 million experience because I needed something to AFK. However, this league, Production Prodigy looks a lot better, especially in combination with some of the other relics that have been released so far. It might end up being a pick for me. Trickster, I'm just not super interested in. When it came out and it was teased, I was kind of immediately like, no, that's not really for me. That's gonna have some real nice quality of life stuff, but nothing compared to what Endless Harvest or Production Prodigy will give. Okay, and I guess next up is the combat relics, which, you know, we kind of already went over combat, so I'll just briefly kind of talk about them. The Archer's Embrace, the range relic, really made me second guess whether or not range was entirely off the table. That thing's going to be super busted with the ruby bolts. I think everybody who picks range is going to have a great time with it, but it's definitely not the one that I'm going for. Brawler's Resolve, the melee choice, it looks really good, having things like a 2-tick leaf-bladed battle axe. That's a super weird pick for a weapon, but it will actually be super strong, especially in the early game. Speaking of the early game, you got the Dragon Longsword is actually going to be super busted until you get the whip. That would be really fun to kind of walk around in some 2004 setup, whacking things with a Dragon Longsword. And, you know, then you're going to get a whip and a tentacle whip. There's going to be so many fun melee weapons. The big problem is that a lot of them are locked behind Mauritania. Ultimately, I think melee is going to be a solid pick for anyone who takes it. But I do think that a lot of the best weapons are hidden behind Mauritania. Even just access to stuff like barrows. I mean, Guthans is going to be super busted with an Amulet of the Damned. But the real big one is the Scythe, let's be real. If you can get your hands on a Scythe and it becomes I think it becomes a 2-tick weapon, it might not, then that's going to be crazy powerful. And finally, again, we've got Mage, which magic with the Tumican Shadow is just going to be insane. Because I'm definitely taking Desert, that's why I'm leaning a little bit more towards Mage, because just knowing that I've got a chance of getting that Shadow and absolutely decimating anything in my path, that's going to be crazy fun. As well, the quality of life for Superior Sorcerer are really good, like having a rune pouch that can hold 6 runes after you get the Thread of Eladinus, that's going to be such good quality of life. It might not end up mattering too much because of some of the other relics, but it's nothing to kind of ignore. Next up is Undying Retribution, which I just wasn't super bothered about Undying Retribution. It depends what other relics come in its tier, but I just think some people are going to do some really cool stuff with Undying Retribution, but I'm not that kind of theory crafter. I'm more just here to kind of wail on things and see how fun it is. So probably not going to be a pick from me, but we'll see. It depends what comes in the tier. And if people get so far ahead of me that I get to see what people are doing with Undying Retribution, that might change my thoughts as well. Alright, Globetrotter. So when I first saw Globetrotter, I immediately just thought, that'll be pointless. You've got Last Recall, but the more I've thought about it, Globetrotter is going to be super handy to basically have a fully decked out player-owned house in your inventory. And I think one of the best things about Globetrotter that a lot of people are sleeping on is that there are going to be a lot of tasks for clues. If you want to be able to do clues quickly, then yeah, you know, you could always just place yourself at a bank, grab whatever you need, and then head out, do the steps. But with Globetrotter, you'll just be able to go anywhere you need as soon as you get that step. Globetrotter is going to be a serious contender in tier 2, I think. Okay, next up is the big one, Banker's Note. So, if you don't know, basically this allows you to note and unnote any items in your inventory. So, the example that was shown in the video was someone with noted pure essence standing next to the blood altar, just unloading inventory after inventory into that. It is what is going to make Production Prodigy really strong for the people who take it. I can't see a world where I don't take Banker's Note. However, we don't know what the other relics in its tier are going to be, and they very well could be as strong as Banker's Note. But I just think for the PVM capabilities alone, Banker's Note's going to be perfect for me. Any of that really difficult content like high invocation tier way, Banker's Note's going to be great for learning stuff like that, because I'll just bring a stack of Ceridome and Brews in with me and just have such longevity in any combat encounter I do. And then the final relic that was announced at the time of recording, Guardian. Now, Guardian looks super strong, and I don't doubt that it is. It is going to be super easy mode for a lot of people doing a lot of the high-end PVM content. It definitely looks fun. Having a little AI girlfriend with you sounds really cool, but I just think that I'd rather improve my own character, make them stronger, and just power through all of the content on my own. I maybe if the other two aren't really great picks, I can see myself picking Guardian, but for now, I think that's probably one I'm not going to take. Okay, so that's all the relics. I guess the last thing to talk about is kind of that first day, what am I going to do? And the answer's simple, I'm going to be doing as many tasks as possible. A lot of the tasks for the starter areas have been put on the wiki, so I'm kind of been reading through them, thinking, okay, what's the most efficient path to take to get as many tasks done as possible? Like, if I'm going to go to Draenor and do a lap, do I stay until 20 or 30 agility? There's a lot of really simple tasks that I'll be able to do while I'm also reading up on all of the new information that we've got. Having experience doing the previous Trailblazer, it looks like a lot of the tasks are the same, so that's definitely going to be an advantage for me. Okay, and that kind of wraps up my plan so far. Obviously, they're not really solid plans. It's so much choice. I think if this league's going to have any problems, it's going to be that I'm going to be walking around with complete choice paralysis, not knowing at all what I should be doing, and just kind of looking at the wiki and thinking, oh, maybe I should go do this task, or maybe I should work on this level. So many options. It's going to be such a wild time. I think I'll do another video, kind of maybe the day before Leagues comes out, and that way we can see all of the new information and whether that's changed anything, whether I've made any hard decisions on combat style, regions, that kind of thing. But I'm super excited. I hope if you are watching this, you can get some enjoyment out of seeing kind of a mid-level player go through leagues and have a blast, because that's really what it's all about. So I just want to have fun. Well, I am going to go for quite a high rank in points, as high as I can really get. Maybe not Dragon, but definitely Rune at least. I hope you can enjoy seeing somebody kind of figure their way out and enjoy it. Or if nobody watches this at all, that's totally fine. I also just wanted to do this as, you know, a little fun project and something to look back on when Leagues is all over, because I have such fond memories of the original Trailblazer, and it's kind of just gone. It's such a shame, but with this one, I'm hoping to have a little series, a little recollection of my 8 weeks and what I accomplished. So yeah, definitely stick around and see how it goes. Okay, and then just if you were curious about the account that I actually play on as a main, this is my Iron Man. It's the only account I have. I don't have a non-Iron Man account. I do have a free-to-play Iron Man that I play occasionally. However, this is my main, my Iron Man. I've had it for 7 years, pretty much just after the Iron Man mode came out. And I've only played kind of on and off for those 7 years. I'm definitely not a super hardcore player, and I take really long breaks. I remember I one time took, I think, like a 2.5 year break. But I'm still really happy with the progress I've got on this. I'm definitely a skiller at heart, so my skills are really high, and I'll show you in a second, but that does not transfer into Boss KC. I think I'm base 85s with the exception of fletching and prep. And that's a little mini goal. I'm also just going for as many levels as possible right now. I'm training some Slayer because I've got an uncut Onyx, so there's potential of getting a Black Demon task, and then I can turn that into one of the Zenyte pieces of jewelry if I get lucky on a Zenyte, that is. But yeah, real quick, I'll show you what I mean about the lack of boss KC. Yeah, you can see I killed Rex. I got a couple B rings. Hespori, I went super dry on for the bucket. Kraken, I got my trident. KBB, I do when I get a task. Vorkath, I went and got the head and then called it quits. And the real big one is Zulrah, which, as you can see, I'm 622 KC on Zulrah. I've gotten every unique except the blowpipe, which is the one I really want. That's kind of what's going to unlock the rest of my account. If you're thinking, why don't I go and do Corrupted Gauntlet? I've done Corrupted Gauntlet on Shattered Relics. I just hate it. And you follow the Iron Man Reddit, Ironscape Reddit, I should say, and you see people going so dry, and I just don't want that to be me. I'd rather knock out 1,000 Zulrah. And if I knock out 1,000 Zulrah and then I still don't have the blood pipe, well, then maybe I'll go and look at the Corrupted Gauntlet. Alright, so it's the next day, and I just wanted to say that I'm aware of a few issues with the audio. The voice is pretty quiet and the game sounds are very loud. I've just entirely muted the game sounds because I play RuneScape on silent mode. I think the narration could use a little tightening up as well. That's something I'm working on, but hopefully it's not going to be as much of an issue during live commentary. I, of course, could do the entire video again, but this series is kind of me practicing, getting quite quick at using Premiere, getting a quick turnover rate for the videos. So I'm just going to leave it as is. We'll do another pre-leagues video before it drops. I'm still waiting for today's teaser to be announced. I guess it's going to be a relic, but I guess we'll see. And then from there, we'll kind of just take it as it goes. But just wanted to say thanks for watching if you did, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye.